Harley Quinn.
Hey guys, it's E-Monk here. Welcome back to my tutorials, hello E-Monkians. Today we are going over the corset of Harley Quinn from Injustice 2. We start with saran wrap because we're going to make ourselves a corset. Now, I previously made a mannequin that fits myself, so if you want to learn how to do that, my friend Aries Cat is supposed to be posting a tutorial here soon on how to make one. If not, I'm sure you can look it up on YouTube, but it's just made out of duct tape, basically, and some cotton and an old t-shirt. So that's really all it is, and you just wrap the saran wrap around it to where it looks like the corset that she's wearing, which you want to cover the top of it, and then you want to go down past your belly a little. So, and then you're supposed to show about a decent amount of your back. It's like right underneath your shoulders. So that's where it's at, and I would suggest to do a couple of layers simply because when I did this, I made sure that I turned it over and over and over again because seriously, this part was just aggravating. Yeah, so, and then just cut it off, make sure it's all nice and snug and fits properly. And then once you do that, once it's all in check, you're going to grab some scotch tape or some type of tape, or in my case, some more saran wrap. It did take about 8 layers, roughly, 8 to 10. So, but luckily saran wrap is pretty cheap. Thank goodness. So, but anyway, once you do that, you're going to get your scotch tape or some type of tape. It don't really matter what tape it is, just as long as it's tape, but I recommend the scotch tape or painter's tape. And you're going to outline your corset because you're basically going to tape up as much of the saran wrap as possible so it stays together. And I ended up running out. My husband had to go get some later. Poor hubby Jay. But this is what I suggest. And I suggest you do an X if you're a girl and you have boobs. So I suggest if you got boobs, you do it this way first because the boobs are the most precise because you want to make sure that your cup is going to fit you properly. So do an X and then literally make small pieces around the bust, otherwise it's not going to work. And now that I got it completely covered, I'm going to start outlining exactly what her corset looks like. As you can see, she has a V, a sweetheart neck, as I found out. That's what the proper term of this is apparently. And it's basically like a heart that goes all the way around. And then towards the bottom, she has 2 V's that expose the belly button. And it's straight in the back, I believe. Just a straight line in the back. So, another thing that I did, you probably won't see it till a little later, which, a little tip actually before I start on that, you see that I'm drawing the second side. Well, it turns out, you don't have to cover up the entire thing. You can actually just do half of it. See where I drew that line? I realized that afterwards. Wish I realized that sooner. So you really only need half of this because, you know, it's technically 2 halves that you're putting together because you're going to have a zipper in the front. So, wish I realized this sooner, but apparently I didn't. So as long as you trace out one side, you're good to go. But I do suggest saran wrapping the whole thing because it's going to be difficult if you don't, because it'll slide everywhere. But next, you're going to add your little lines to separate all the pieces. And the way I did this one is I looked at her corset for a very, very long time, and I marked where the lines are. The little black lines that she has that has the boning in it, that's what I use as a reference to mark it out. And right there, I marked where half of it's at. This is at the point where I realized I only needed half. So, there I am fixing the saran wrap, trying to make sure everything's straight in the way I want it. At some point I'm going to show you how to do. There we go. And see? And that's actually where you're going to be cutting it. See where I made that line? It goes like right across the nipple area, roughly. So about there. And here I am making sure that it's all going to be even, and I'm drawing another line because she has 2 black lines right there. So she has quite a few. As you can see, I'm referencing back and forth. And then next you're going to do the back. which I think she has 2 to 3 panels on the back. I did have to end up adjusting this because it ended up being a little too big. Apparently I lost weight since I last done this mannequin. So you'll see the little X marks where it's not supposed to be. See? But you're going to keep that little line because you're going to need to cut it in a V shape to keep the boob form. So, but as you can see, I'm concentrating really, really, really hard. So, yeah. There we go. There's the back. Like I said, I suggest looking at your reference picture over and over again, because this is going to help you. And as I said, you don't really need to do the other side. But next is cutting. And this is where I'm showing you that you don't need that piece right there. So, as you can see, I looked overworked because I was a little bit, my fabric came in a little later than I thought. So, and now I'm cutting it off the mannequin, and you have to be careful to make sure that you don't accidentally cut the mannequin. So, which I didn't, thankfully. Apocalypse is still put together. So, just be sure to cut it carefully and slowly. Now, I have heard of people putting it on themselves and doing it like this, where they wrap it around themselves and then trace it out like that. Just since, you know, I already had the mannequin, I went that route. But you can do that too, and it's the same exact steps. So, I've seen a few people on tutorials actually do that. So, like one is Acceleration Cosplay, or Axe. I follow her, and this is kind of where I got it from in a way, but she did it on herself. So, look her up if you want to see how to do it on yourself. It's for her Hawkeye corset tutorial, and this is where I got the idea from. But now we're cutting up the sections, that way we can make sure that when we cut out our fabric, it'll make it a lot easier. So, and do that, and then I'll get back to you. And don't forget to cut away any excess that you may have, because there's no point in keeping the excess, obviously. It'll just make it easier on you when you do cut. And remember, if you have boobs, make sure you make that little slit, the little V-slip, that's going to be in the area where you need to have your boob area. Trust me. Because you need that little slit so it can actually curve properly. Because unfortunately, it doesn't keep that beautiful shape that you see right now. And I don't think I show it on here, so I'm going to tell you that. Again, I am sorry this is long, but I felt like all of this footage was mostly necessary because it was a trial and error, and it is my first corset that I made. So, yeah, sorry for the longness. And that ends up being all the pieces, and that's where I showed you the V, where you have to cut it. You don't actually cut any pieces out, that's just where you're going to end up slanting it later to create a boob. And I labeled it for myself to make it easier, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So, just for me, that was easier. And right there is where I show you where to stop at. And this does have seam allowance. So if you don't end up cutting it with seam allowance, you need to make sure that your template has seam allowance, or trace it out with seam allowance. One of the two, or just cut it with it. And here I am placing it on the fabric. I got this fabric on Etsy, both my red and black pleather. That's what it is. It's shiny pleather. And it's actually easy to sew if you have a walking foot. And it's also very stretchy, so you don't really have to have seam allowance, but I still added some because since I'm going to add the boning, I wanted to make sure that I had enough. And when it comes to, another thing is that when it comes to the seam allowance thing and the stretch, mainly the stretch, you need to make sure that it's stretching on the correct side if it's a two-way fabric. So you would rather it stretch wide than long. So I suggest you make sure that you double check your fabric, because I actually screwed up on this the first time and I made it stretch long ways instead of width, and that wasn't so good, so I had to switch it out. And here's where I am double checking to make sure that it's correct. And yeah, the easiest way I found is to mark it with a pen, like your erasable thing. But I found that since, you know, I only cut out half, after I trace it, I can fold the fabric in half and I can pin it. That way, whenever I cut it, I'm actually cutting 2 pieces. Woohoo! We'll level up for learning something. So just fold it and yeah, just cut it out if you bobby pin it. Bobby pin will help keep it in place, and then you can just take the pins out later. But at least it'll keep it in place whenever you go to cut it. That way you don't accidentally cut something you weren't supposed to cut. And sorry if my camera blurs in and out. It hates the colors red and black, which is so ironic because that's the colors I mostly use the majority of the time. So sorry if it likes to fade in and out. It's a very particular, angry camera that just hates the colors I pick, apparently. And another thing I wanted to add is that whenever you are tracing this out, make sure it's on the wrong side, because you don't want to accidentally put the marker on your actual shiny fabric. That whenever you put it on you, if it's on the right side of the fabric, it's not gonna fit you properly and you're gonna end up having it inside out. And you don't want to do that. So, lesson learned. Do not do that, because that's a mistake I've done plenty of times. And now I'm showing you where the boning is going to end up going. All I did was cut out black strips that fit each individual piece, and you want to make sure that it's going to be the sides that are going to be sewn together. So measure it out to your fabric piece and make sure it's black, because that's where the boning is going to go, and you only need to do it to one side of each fabric. And here I am starting the main back panel, and I'm showing you how to actually add the black pieces together after you've sewn all the black pieces on. So after you sew all that on, you're going to connect it all. So you're basically going to go back to your template if you have to. I had to a few times, to be honest. But you're going to connect all the pieces like a little puzzle. So that way each part that was cut separate has the black line. And it's exactly made just like hers. So if you follow this to the point, you'll have exactly her actual corset. And again, I'm showing you how to add it properly. once you sew that black side on, make sure that you connect that other side of the black piece to the other fabric that's red. So you're literally going red, black strip, red, and you're continuing that until you get to the very end where it's right in the middle of the boobs, because she zips her zipper right there. She has a zipper in between her boobs. So you're going to keep doing that exact pattern until it's close to the end where you have to add the zipper. And then all you do is just sew along that line and make sure that the fabric is turned properly. I can't stress this enough. And make sure that the stretch for the black, you actually don't want it to really be wide. On this one, you want it to be length. It's just easier that way, and that way the boning fits in it properly. Another tip I want to add is make sure you use a zigzag stitch. That is what I use for the majority of my projects. It's because it's a straight stitch, and I highly suggest, you'll see a little extension on my sewing machine. That is called a walking foot. It is the best thing invented ever for stretchy fabric for sewing machine, because normally my sewing machine would eat this stuff up and I would have to hand sew it. But if you get a walking foot and look up a tutorial on YouTube how to properly put it on, it's like the best thing ever for any stretchy fabric, especially if it's thin or even if it's thick. Like, I don't even bother using regular feet anymore because I just use it now. So, highly stress that. We are gonna keep repeating this process over and over and over and over again. Ugh. Don't you love tedious, specific designs where they make you go insane and you feel like you're pinning forever? Then again, if you're not as big as I am, it probably wouldn't take as long, but you know, it happens. But it's okay. At least it'll fit. And even though it's making me go mad, at least it'll help me fit into the character properly. So, at least that works. I bet you are wondering, E-Monk, why did you keep this in here? Why is this long? You could have totally just butchered and cut the majority of this out, because we get the idea by now. Well, E-Monk didn't exactly think this through, because E-Monk is very, very tired, because she's been working on this video for 2 days now to do some special effects for a couple of seconds. So, yeah, not complaining. Just a very, very tedious work. Which it's okay, because all this corset did was drive me insane for a little bit. That's all. But it's alright, because it don't matter. Now I'm just rambling on until it goes to the next clip, because I'm a dingus and didn't bother cutting this shorter. But yeah, it's okay though. I'll just sit here in my own little thoughts, watching myself bobby pin a piece to another piece, just because I apparently didn't bother getting the hint and being like, hey, you can stop recording now, because I'm a dingus. Hey, yay, we're going on to the next clip. Woohoo! Alrighty, now we are going to, after you sew both of those on, you're going to sew the 2 red panels together. and it's going to create a hole for you to put it in. See where I'm pinching? Yeah, but don't worry, I cut this short. So, even though I probably should have left it, but oh well. But yeah, you just keep pinning and pinning and pinning some more. Haven't you seen a pattern like this before? But it's okay. So, I hope I cut this shorter. It's starting to look like I didn't. It looked like I meant to do it, but I forgot to take it out. I am not doing a very good job at this. This is a new editing program though, but that's still no excuse. But it's okay. We only got 2 minutes left of this tutorial. There isn't much left to do. So, thankfully our corset's practically done, because all you gotta do is just sew these red panels together. That way it makes a hole in the front for your little... What is that called again? Oh, your boning. Yeah. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and I am tired. And I gotta go take children to school with my hubby. See? Ta-da! I didn't make this as long. Just ramble a little. And just sew it and do it to all of them. See? It looked like it disappeared, but it's in the front. And there you go. See? Ta-da! In the front. Now you're gonna put your little bone in, which I got plastic bone in really cheap. $12 for like a big old roll of it. Oh yeah, and you want to sew up that slit too. Don't forget about that slit that I really stressed earlier. And you got 2 of those, so remember that. Now you're going to put your boning in. I took it out of the wrapping because I didn't need the wrapping, because I made my own wrapping because I needed it to be black, not white. Then once you put it in there, you're going to top stitch it down. Just be very, very careful and try not to break needles like I did by sewing onto the plastic. You got to be very, very careful about doing that. Now you're going to hem it up, and then once you hem up the bottom and the top, you're going to, ta-da, sew in your zipper. Yay! Which is pretty simple. And voila, zipper complete. And that is it. And I use clear straps like I did with Dante, so go to the Dante shirt tutorial if you want to see that.
Harley Quinn wins.
Thank you to all of my Patreon supporters for making all of these videos possible. To become a Patreon supporter, go to patreon.com/emonk060292 or look in the description or in the eye above. Thank you guys!